Radha Agrawal is a nine-figure entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and a renowned speaker in community building. She's a community architect, founded Daybreaker, which is a global dance community with close to 1 million members that grew organically with no advertising. Her expertise is sought after by educational institutions like Boston University, major companies like Facebook, Adidas, AARP. She also co-founded Thinx Underwear and has successfully launched and invested in various other businesses and wellness and in the wellness sector. She is a powerhouse, and her book, Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life, is a beautiful roadmap for finding, calling in, and creating your tribe, whether it's just a group of friends or a community on a purpose. I'm so excited for this Language of Love conversation with Radha Agrawal. Radha Agrawal, I'm so thrilled that you're with us on the Language of Love. Thank you for joining us.
It's so great to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been a fan for a long time of as a sex educator and therapist, which is my background, I was so excited when Thinx came out. And for so many reasons, ecological ones, emotional ones, international ones, women's rights reasons. But I had, so for those of you who don't know, Thinx is sort of, this is probably not the right term of it, but it's menstrual underwear, basically.
Yeah.
And I've always been a fan of Daybreaker since I think since you guys started for years, and we'll get into all this in a minute, but for years, I kept saying to my friends, like, I want to go clubbing, but without the clubbing part.
Yeah.
Like have a dance party in our living room. And right as I was moving out of Chicago to LA, I started hearing about this Daybreaker thing. And so when I heard about your book, and I've kind of been following you along the Daybreaker route, I had no idea that you were also the co-founder of Thinx, of the period underwear. So you're quite an inventive powerhouse.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Laura.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this, but in particular, because, my peeps here, I hear from so many of them, about, especially when I post things, I'm someone who grew up with tremendous social anxiety, and my mother was extremely socially anxious. So it was kind of, passed on logistically and emotionally. And it wasn't really until my 30s that I started like getting healthy enough inside myself and doing enough of my own healing to resolve that and to start making friends. And over the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, I've really been so blessed to create this tribe of soul friends that have seen me through some of the darkest, most devastating times in my life. And so when I post things about it, or people see me with my community, they're like, "Oh, I don't have that. I don't know how to do that." And like, I have my few little tips, but you have this book called Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. I think it's a bestseller. Am I correct that it's a bestseller?
It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And I read it and I was like, okay, this will be cool. This woman's really cool, obviously. Let me see what the book is about. But what I loved was that it's literally a roadmap, not just for like creating community. If you want to create an organization or something, you have your own Daybreaker dream. We're going to talk about what Daybreaker is in a second. But it's also like a guide for how to make even one friend, much less a community of friends. Like it gets into everything you need to find your people, which is like, I'm so excited to share this with you guys because I know you've been asking questions about this. And, there's this epidemic of loneliness that you, Roddy, know about better than I do. Maybe we should start there. Like, what are the latest statistics?
Yeah. So, 1 in 4 Americans have 0 friends to confide in. And this number has tripled in the last 30 years. And it turns out that having poor social connections is as harmful to your physical health as being an alcoholic, or twice as harmful as smoking cigarettes. And, first of all, thank you for, highlighting the important conversation of belonging and ending loneliness. when I think about every social issue we face as a human species, it all ladders down to I don't belong, therefore I will dot 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 harm myself or harm others, harm the planet, right? It's a gun violence, political polarization, the environmental degradation, like every single
School
one of the
shootings.
social school shootings, literally every single social issue we face as a species ladders down to I don't belong. And so when I was looking at, where I could support in creating a foundation or a nonprofit, I realized that actually underneath each of these problems that we're trying to solve is our sense of belonging or sense of loneliness. And so I thought to myself, if we actually can end loneliness, then we can take down systematically every single social issue we face as a species. So we can then kind of get all of them at once.
Amen. And that just gives me full body chills because I like know in every cell of my being that is true. And it's what's underneath everything.
Think about the wars. Think about, every dictator, and then they didn't belong growing up, so they became dictators, right? So it's like,
Hitler. He
exactly.
was such an outcast and
That's right. That's
such a
right.
failure.
That's
Yeah.
right. I mean, look at the presidential, it's like candidate, it's like,
Yeah.
anyway, and so there's a lot of not enough conversation happening around. I mean, now there is around loneliness beginning to, but we were talking about depression and anxiety for so long because pharmaceutical companies could make a lot of money selling, anxiety and depression medication, but you can't medicate loneliness. You can only solve for it through social connection and learning how to make friends, right? Learning how to rupture and repair, learning how to really choose the 5 closest friends you keep, wisely. And so that's kind of why I wrote the book and why, I started Daybreaker, why I launched my nonprofit. All of my projects that I work on now are in one way or another connected to building community and making friends.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, that's everything. And you call yourself, which is a perfect title, a community architect. And you kind of spell out in the book how to build, literally design and build your friendships and your community and even an intentional community. So we're going to go through kind of it's all in the book and we'll kind of summarize some of the key steps that stood out to me. But one of the places you start, and this is relevant to anyone who just wants to, make a friend, right? Because like you said, so many people don't even have one person.
That's right.
And you talk about the importance of cultivating these FSFs, the 5 cents friendships and the fuck yes friends that you want to fuck yes friends, FYFs as possible. As many, and usually those fuck yes friends are 5 cents friendships. But I think that's really important. I want you to explain it in particular with regard to social media. Because, a lot of people are using, I'm guilty of that too. I'm so busy. Let me just have a quick Zoom tea with you is like.
Right.
So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So, let me first take a kind of a quick 10,000 foot view of sort of like our experience as a human, right? So we go through maybe 7 or 8 transitions in our lifetimes when we're, moving from our home to college for the first time, or just moving away from home as a teenager, when we graduate college, when we move to a new city, get a job, when we, find someone, fall in love, and when we get married, when we have kids, when we get divorced, when we retire. There's all these moments of transition in our lives where we're starting over, right? And you move away from home, you go to college, and actually just a quick share, a few universities, Boston University being one of the few others, have picked up my book to give like 5,000 copies for all their incoming freshmen, which is really cool. I think it's an amazing thing for colleges to do, is to give their incoming freshmen who are so vulnerable, just because they're home for the first time, a roadmap for how to make friends in school. And so
no one knows how to do that. That's such a great idea.
Especially.
I have my youngest is a sophomore in college, and he, for some reason, has never been interested in. So, he's interested in social media from like a status-y kind, but he's not on there. He'd rather be outside. He's my only kid like that. But notice that his whole community, like the whole class, are so socially awkward because they were sheltered at home. They didn't have social interactions, and mostly, and now this is getting a lot more play, thank God, because they've lived their lives on social media rather than in person.
That's right. And it's interesting. We're starting to consult now for a lot of college campuses, to really serve these students who just are so socially anxious, socially awkward, don't know how, the building blocks of friendship, don't know actually that you don't, that you make mistakes sometimes in friendships. That's just sort of part of life. And if you say one wrong thing, to not be canceled, but to forgive each other, to learn the
Oh God,
tools
that's
and the
so
muscles of rupture and repair. And so there's so many different areas of socialization that we have obviously not, kind of been in the dojo or been in the gym of life around. And so, yeah, it's becoming increasingly more important to A, address it, and B, support, whether it's students or, again, like I said, across each one of these transitions in our lives, the opportunity to, kind of give people the courage and confidence and the tools for how to create your community at each of these transitional moments. So one thing to say about social media is, I like social media for Daybreaker to share with my community when the next in-person event is happening, right? So it's like a really great way to just sort of broadcast to my community, my friends, my followers, whoever, that there's an in-person IRL event happening. So I will often use social media as a quick tool to get off as fast as possible, right? And I love Hinge's tagline, for example, designed to be deleted. This idea
yeah,
that you come online, you meet someone, and then you're taking it offline and you delete the app. Like that's the point.
yeah.
So I think social media, if we use it in the way that I do believe it was probably initially intended to be built, right? And again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as they say. And so, I really do believe that the initial intention was, how can I just get in touch with as many people as possible? I have to message each person one at a time or pick up the phone and call them one at a time. I can just let my whole community know that I'm doing a big picnic or a big dance party, a big Daybreaker event at this venue, at this place, and let my whole community know. I think now it's because they've added the followers and the likes, and of course we're becoming more educated in that, in the psychology of, and the negative aspects of that, that we're becoming more attuned to it. There's a lot more kind of social media tools like, 15-minute limits and things like that that are being placed on there. Though, I know, including myself, I will often just ignore it or just pretend it's not there. But there are new efforts being made to express obviously the downsides of social media. And I think particularly for a sense of belonging, right? We have to build a muscle in person to fall in love, to make love. Think about, when you kiss someone, you're not going to just learn it online. You have to go and actually practice the art of kissing. When you go, we have to practice the art of talking, the art of conversation, the art of having difficult, I call it crucial conversations, right? Cruche. I call it a cruche, which makes it a little bit
You have
more
a lot of good terms and acronyms.
joyful. There's actually a book called Crucial Conversations that I read that I really loved, but I kind of made it more playful and I call it crucial. So I'll call my friends now and I'll say, "Hey, Laura, can we have a quick cruche? There's something that you said that I just wanted to clarify and make sure that we were still on the same page, or, that it touched a chord for me and I wanted to clarify it." So I'll call friends, and it's actually fun to have crucials. It doesn't feel like, "Hey, Laura, can we talk?"
I
Which is
see.
also very nerve-wracking and very, sort of fear-inducing,
Yeah.
right?
Have a lot of things like that, and also this idea of getting, whether it's for yourself or for a community you're building, like, if it's just for finding one friend or for creating a whole community, getting really clear on, your VIA is your acronym, right? Your
That's
value,
right.
your interests, and your abilities. And we'll get into values in a minute because I love how you break that down. And I think that's so crucial to think about. People don't think about when they're thinking about calling new community in or friendships in. They don't get clear on what their values
That's
are.
right.
They don't get clear on what values they want in a friend, what values they don't want in a friend, what they need to kind of change to be a match for those friends that they want, to embody that themselves, right? Like you get into all of that. But I think this authenticity piece runs through everything you do, like even with the cruise, right? Like, let's have a cruise, like, let's have an authentic conversation. Maybe you didn't mean to say this thing that triggered me, but it triggered me and I have this reaction. I just, which is so who I am. And I kind of, my way of saying it is that I have tons of shadows. Everyone I know has tons of shadows, but I'm only interested in being close to and working closely with people who are just friends with their shadows.
That's
So when they
right.
come up or when they get triggered, like my joke with my friends is if I trigger them or they trigger me, the one who triggered at the end of the conversation will be, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome for triggering you because that gave you an opportunity to, it's kind of a
Meet
joke.
it.
Like, you're
Right, to meet it.
welcome that I was an asshole and triggered
That's
you.
right. No, that's right. That's right. It's like all we can do is keep meeting these triggers and composting them, right? And so, yeah, so when I think about your values and your
Yeah.
interests and your abilities, it really is about doing an audit once a year. We change skin, like our cells regenerate every 7 years, right? So like who I am today is a completely different skin than I wore 7 years ago. And so to really honor our values changing and evolving, right? And some people in the political world will call it flip-flopping, but
Uh,
actually it's just learning more about yourself, and so you're making an evolutionary kind of upgrade, right, based on these new key learnings. And so I really love kind of auditing and reevaluating my values, my interests, and what I'm good at, right?
yeah.
How I show my abilities and how I want to show up in my community. Once a year I do that. I'll write down a list of everyone that I feel close to and everyone that I want to continue deepening a relationship with, which is a really beautiful practice. And then I kind of sit down and I'm like, oh wow, I remember the year I became a mother. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Soleil. And I remember when I became a mother, my values completely started shifting,
Yeah.
right? From partying and socializing and just going to one festival culture and that whole thing, which I still obviously love, but really kind of beginning to value more education and family, dynamics and family adventures and sort of activities focused on intergenerational connection. And so my values changed, right, when I became a mother, and my values changed when I turned 40. My values changed when, right? And so it's been a really fun way to track who I am over the last decade through these sort of changes in my values. Same thing in my interests, right? My interests obviously change when you become a mother, when as you get older. My interests now on longevity, on breath work,
Oh,
on really just understanding kind of just the way my body really works so that I could continue supporting her for years to come. And also my interests, yeah, can continue to be in the world of the next generation, and how I can really be in service of not just my daughter but her entire generation, the generations to follow. It's sort of a really cool new interest to be able to see beyond my own nose and into the next.
yeah. I'm thinking
That's been really
about that.
special. Yeah, exactly. And then your abilities is more sort of like, as you continue to live your life, what abilities are you cultivating in yourself that you can then bring to your community, right? And so for me, I'm a natural gatherer. My home has always been a place where people, it's like Grand Central Station. My house is always full of friends. It's always the meeting place for dinners or for parties. And so I would say my interest or my abilities continues to be gathering and sending the invitations out. And while everyone's so busy with their working lives, I sort of tend to be the one that's like, okay, I'm super busy also, but let me just organize a big summer, July 4th weekend at my farmhouse, or let me organize a Halloween party, or let me organize X, Y, and Z. So it's always been something that comes naturally to me, and so I'll just go and do that. And something I actually also say in my book quite a bit is that you'll never be alone, you never feel lonely if you have the courage to begin organizing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so if you're waiting for an invitation, it may never come. But if you actually begin to put an idea together, get a theme together of like what is the theme of the event going to look like? What's the name of it? How much you want to spend? How many people do you want to invite? And then just sort of begin with that courageous invitation. Then all of a sudden your life changes. And that's what happened to me, you know.
Yeah, I think, and I found the same thing because it actually helped my social anxiety years ago to be the one that was hosting, even though I would get anxious, like, oh my God, what are they going to think about that? There was a little of that going on, but there was also a sense of control. And there was also fear, like, what if nobody comes? But I was just like, all right, then I'll just enjoy myself,
Exactly. That's literally it. That's literally
Yeah.
it. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many events that I've thrown where one, two people would show up and it was perfect. We got really
Yeah.
deep and it was amazing. And I think there's such a social pressure also in terms of having how many numbers show up
Yeah.
for you to feel good about yourself. But
Yeah.
actually, the universe delivers exactly what you need in that moment. If it was one or two people, then it's perfect. And by the way, if you give them an amazing time, then they'll invite one of their friends. And then all of a sudden it goes from two to four, four to eight, and eight to,
Yeah.
and then it exponentially grows. And that's sort of how we grew our dance community, Daybreaker.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that, using that, I think, as a model to show this kind of crawl method you have for creating a
Yes.
community. But yeah, I started doing these grieving mama meetups. My middle son died tragically and suddenly 3.5 years ago. And yeah, it's like,
Wow.
I know. And so that took me on a whole journey. But what, about a year, I guess, after he died, I started like lifting my head up and looking around and being like, nobody has any freaking idea how to grieve, how to, like, I've been in this portal of transformation. I've gone all the way into the bottom. Like I can feel this like major metamorphosis
Um,
happening, and nobody knows how to do this. And I was like, I'm just going to do a meetup. And I said, I just put it out on social media. If you've lost a child, come to Tower 25 on Saturday at this time. And I didn't know why the hell I was even doing it. I think I was kind of trying to be of service. Like I was freaking out that, like, just like I was with sex when I started becoming a sex therapist 30 years ago, I looked around, I was like, what? Nobody's talking. Nobody's comfortable talking about, like, well, how can everybody's doing it, but nobody's talking about it? Like, how can that be? Like,
right.
it was sort of the same feeling. And so I thought, all right, we'll see who comes. I don't even know who's following me. And when I saw these 15 women walking down the beach, I started bawling because I realized that event I was doing was not, yes, it was for them, but it was really for me because I needed them as much as they needed.
Of course.
I've never been, I lead group therapy, but I do my own individual therapy, but I've never been a big group therapy participant myself. But now we do these monthly grieving meetups, and I get these visiting healers to come, and we do circle time, and then we have our healing thing. And my whole thing is like, you don't have to RSVP because you don't know how the hell you're going to be feeling that day. And whoever comes is meant to come. Sometimes 3 people come, sometimes 30 people come, you never know. And each time it is so perfectly designed, like we'll be able to go really deep with the 3 people that are there,
Right.
and they're the ones that like really needed it.
Yeah.
And they got to have that experience that they wouldn't have had if the 30 had been there. And
Wow.
the healer got to have that, so each time it works out so perfectly if you
I
just keep up
can't.
the rules.
To just segue into what we're actually working on right now, we just launched a nonprofit this year called Belong Center to end loneliness. And in fact, my new my chief community officer and chief community operating officer, Becca Bernstein, she came from Sheryl Sandberg's nonprofit Option B, which was all about grief, all
Yeah.
about supporting with grief. I don't know if you know Option B.
I do know Option B. I don't know them personally, but I know of the organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Becca ran grief circles for, the last 5, 7 years and supporting, mothers like you, just humans all around the country. She was supporting 11 million
Wow.
people through Option B, and Cheryl has since wound it down. And so I got the
Got her.
gift of Becca. So we're launching Belong Center circles, these community circles to talk about your loneliness, to match make you with the right values line communities, so that anyone like your son, like anyone in our communities that feel like you're in a moment of transition, we give you a place to go before it's too late, right? Like these circles like AA, while they're incredible, it's once you've already become an alcoholic, right? NA, once you've already become, right, addicted to substances. And so our goal with Belong Circles is to create a preventative place where you can go right when you're feeling the existential experience of being human, which is loneliness, and show up to a circle and share your experience, and then recognize that, oh, across intergenerations, you're not alone. And then we'll give you the tools. You'll make friends at the circle itself, or our team will match make you with the right values aligned community. We have an app that we're launching as well, where you get to sort of really connect with people who align with your values, your interests, and your abilities. And so it's
Help
really
you
exciting.
and help you get clear. I want you guys to go into schools, high school
Exactly.
and
Oh,
middle.
that's my dream. That's the next. We're going to do that. Love to go into LA high school. Like
And
I want to go into the major metros first, and then work our way, just because I just feel like there's so much need for, believe it or not, in the bigger the city, the lonelier it can.
yes. And also there's, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Crap, I have such a name dysfunction. But it's a famous actor. It'll come to me in a second. But his famous words are, all right, all right, all right. Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah.
So he started an organization in high schools. I'm just mentioning because you may want to partner with them, called
Huh.
called Just Keep Living. And it's to prevent teen suicide. And it's an
Amazing.
after school club. And they've had me come and speak there. They meet in person at all the different schools around the country, hundreds of schools. And then they sometimes have these big Zoom gatherings where they have a speaker like me. But I bet they would be interested in some sort of collaboration.
Would love
Uh,
that. If you know anyone there, would love to connect. But yeah, I'll definitely reach out. I love that. Yeah, I think high school is a critical moment to support someone's loneliness, or just young people's
yeah,
loneliness.
middle
And
school, starting in middle school.
middle school, exactly. Well, my book is illustrated for that reason. I
Yeah,
really want to feel childlike when you move through it, so that across any transition of your life, whether you're an adult or a young person, you could go through the book and it really feels like it's speaking to you.
yeah, I love the. Did you make those illustrations?
I
I was.
did. I did. I creative directed all of them. I mean, I illustrated a lot of them, most of them too, but I also worked with an amazing artist, Ryan, a friend of mine, to also, it was like I had a big deadline, so he came in and helped me
That's
finish up.
amazing. All right, so let's get into Daybreaker and use
Yes.
that as an example to talk about whether you want to start a huge movement or just, a group that is connected around similar values or ideals. This method that Radha spells out in her book, the acronym is CRAWL. I love all the acronyms, and we're going to get into these, but let's use Daybreaker and even explain what Daybreaker is, which we haven't actually done yet, to kind of go through the key steps of CRAWL.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So first of all, I started Daybreaker 11 years ago, really as a social experiment, and the idea was, it's like at a certain age when you become, come into your mid 30s, all of a sudden you're sort of not interested in getting drunk and staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning anymore. You still want to party and get dressed up and put on the makeup and the glitter and, and just have fun, but just not at the expense of your wellness, right? And so this is a time in 2013 where the worlds of wellness and festival culture were exploding, but they were not really married together. So the idea was, what if we brought wellness and the culture of festival culture, nightlife culture together and made a baby? And that's sort of what Daybreaker is. And instead of doing it at nighttime, it's a morning dance party. So you could be in bed by 10 p.m.
Yeah,
is
that's
sort
what I
of what I
love.
always say.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's a
sober.
morning. Hoda talks about this all the time on the Today Show, or on, I think it's Today Show. Yeah, she's always like, is there anything in the mornings? But yeah,
Yes.
we've been doing it for 11 years. And the idea was, again, yeah, would people be willing to dance their faces off before going to work on a weekday morning? Now we do them in weekends as well. But it turns out that, lots of people wanted this, and it just took off. And yeah, we've been almost, $0 in marketing. It's all been whisper sharing, I call it. And we're, 11 years in, we're almost 1 million community members in 33 cities around the world, and
And it's
everyone
all
waking up and
sober.
dancing.
It's
Yeah,
so
so it's a 3 hour experience. It's a sober dance party. The first hour is a yoga or a movement practice, and the second 2 hours is a dance party with like a horn section and fire spinners and aerialists and break dancers and all in the morning. So it's like you wake up
yeah,
and you start your day with like this gigantic energetic
party.
boom,
Yeah.
and it's a party and you dance and you feel healthy and you're also, in that collective effervescence moment. So you're sort of, you feel that high from the contact of being with other people. And it's just this incredible way to start your day. And yeah, we've been doing it for 11 seasons now. This is our 11th one. And in fact, this fall, we just announced yesterday our next tour, which is the Purple Tour. And the Purple Tour is to bring red states and blue states together to come home to the fact that one team, one dream. And then the kind of the tagline is party to the polls. So we're bringing pole dancers to polling stations all across America. We're going to make civic engagement a fun celebratory experience rather than like going to the DMV. And, we are the big party that, all the big get out the vote organizations are now pointing to, working with dozens of nonprofits and get out the vote orgs to work with them to party to the polls. And we also have a bunch of elected officials working with us as well to make sure that the elections this year, which are so important, are also a celebratory experience. And
That
so, yeah,
we all weigh in, and it's
exactly.
nonpartisan. So I think that's important.
Yes, yes, yes. Our Purple Tour is meant to be, yeah, nonpartisan. It's meant to be really bringing everyone together to dance. And then we're going to march to the polls together, like Pied Piper with a horn section, to the polling station next door, and we're all going to get out the vote together. So it's really meant to be kind of a culture shift. We hope that this is the beginning of a big culture shift to make civic engagement something to be celebrated and fun and something to dress up for. So hopefully we'll be doing this for, every midterm and every general election.
Love that. So when does that begin?
So the first events start in September. It's literally 40 plus events in 40, 50 days. So we're doing almost one event a day, maybe sometimes more across the country to get the vote out and get people civically engaged and to remember that, yeah, just like we get to self-express on the dance floor, to self-express with our vote is just as important. And so it's our first time really merging the dance party with civic action and civic
Yeah, I
engagement.
like
So we're
that.
really proud of it.
All right. So along those lines, with Daybreaker, if like, let's use that because you kind of used this crawl method to develop and cultivate Daybreaker. Really, I'm sure
Yeah.
everything you create. So C is for like your core values, which also includes your core restraints, which I thought was interesting. So talk about that for a sec.
So crawl, like I kind of coined this method for community building because, there's so many millions of ways to build community, but I really distilled kind of the building blocks of community for anyone, whether you want to start a small community or a large movement. This would be the building blocks for them. And I call it the crawl method because community building is one of those things where you can't, raise super PAC dollars to go and execute. You have to do it slowly over time. I mean, maybe obviously for an election it's different, but certainly for a long-term community, it really is human to human. So you have to crawl, you can't run. So the C in the crawl method is to define your core values, your constraints, and your core community. So your constraints meaning, if you're not into the morning, the constraint would be then this might not be right for you. Or if the constraint is you need to drink alcohol to have fun and dance, then we might not be for you. Or the constraint could be we play a disco house kind of music. If you're into hip hop or whatever, we might not be the right dance party for you. So the constraints allow for your community to look at this sort of space and say, oh, is this me or is this not me? And so that constraint allows for that filtering to happen in a way that makes it easier for the community to come in or come out. And so that makes it easier for the community builder as well to know, are you deeply excited about this community or not? So that's a constraint. Core values is really defining what are your core values of your community first, even if it's an experiment or a fun just an idea to really just ask yourself, close your eyes and take a breath and just ask yourself, like, what are the core values of this community? Like, what does it stand for? So for a Daybreaker, it's a dance party, but our core values are wellness, to be healthy, right? Camaraderie, to make friends, self-expression, to move your body, to practice being expressed, mindfulness, which is to be here now, which dance helps you, really support, and mischief, which is, to really go against the grain, do something different, live life with a wink. So those 5 core values are the lens through which we look at all of our theming, sponsorship, partnerships, just, all the artists that we hire and work with, that we lens them through these 5 core values. And then the core community piece is so important as well, because when you're launching a community for the first time, you don't want to just put out an open casting call and hope that people just show up, because inevitably that's going to be kind of disorganized energy coming to your event.
Yeah.
Right? Like you might have kind of a curmudgeon person, you might have like a high, and just it doesn't all mix and match. So really making sure that you invite your core community first. So meaning what I did for Daybreakers, I put down an Excel spreadsheet. I wrote 300 names down of my FYFs, my fuck yeah friends that would be like, fuck yeah, I'll wake up on a weekday morning in the middle of the winter and dance sober before going to work. And so it's like the constraints are very high.
Yeah.
The barriers to entry are very high for Daybreaker. But if you begin writing down, you're like, oh, I can imagine if you close your eyes right now, you can probably imagine like, 20 people in your community who'd be like, fuck yeah, I'll wake up for Laura and show up for her. I'll wake up for me because I want to try something new. So those are the people that we put on this Excel spreadsheet. And it was a debate between me and my partner, my co-founder at the time. And we spent a couple days like, kind of, would this person be good? No, they're going to shit talk it, or they're going to like put it down this other friend group, and it's not going to be good. There's some of these friends that are your friends, but they don't really want to see you succeed.
Yeah, you don't want those at your
You,
initial.
you don't want those at your initial events. Like maybe they'll come through later, but those who are like smiling at your face but quietly want you to fall down, they're the ones that I know right away who they are. But I continue to welcome them in my community because hopefully they learn through osmosis, But they wouldn't be in my initial core community. Right. And so,
And you talk a lot actually in the book, which I mean, my last book, Quantum Love, was all about how to harness this piece toward, to create the love life you want. But you talk a lot, my language, about energy and
that's right.
how part of, just in terms of friendships, in terms of community and cultivating and architecting your community, that you have to have a good mix of energy, and you have to be aware of people's energy and where they're, if they're in those lower frequencies, I would call it, or spend a lot of time there,
That's right.
it's not the,
Relax energy. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's like if you just have the type A kind of high octane, sort of like nonstop energy, that can get exhausting for the community. So you want to really match, but you want to, first of all, you want to just kind of invite those who have a positive fuck yeah attitude about life in general.
yeah,
So that could be someone who's relaxed, or someone who's hyper and excited, right?
right,
And so
right,
but the key is to have a mix, and I put this axis in my book, the XY axis, right? The
right,
relaxed to high energy, and then the low to high,
yeah,
negative to positive energy,
yeah.
right? And
And
so
then you kind of plot everyone in
you
that
got it.
graph. Yeah, that was really, I was thinking, oh, wow, that's an interesting exercise I think most of them would be in the positive because I've weaned my inner core so much. I've culled it, a lot over the past several years. But yeah, that was really interesting how you taking toll of the energetic frequencies that you're surrounding yourself by in your day-to-day life, but also in particular when you're wanting to create a community of friends or a community of purpose, how important that is.
That's right. And one thing to add to that, Laura, is just this idea that just because kind of don't get along with someone, or you don't feel like the person, sort of doesn't fully understand you, doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And this is
Yeah,
something that in the past I would have sort of been like, I don't like them, they don't like me, whatever.
yeah,
But as I kind of really became a student of community, I realized that you're just on different channels. Like if you're on a
yes,
TV screen, you're on channel 3, I'm on channel 7. Your channel is great, my channel is great. They're just different channels. And so we're allowed to not always be in the same channel, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person, but I'm just like, I'm just not necessarily going to, call you an inner core community
Yeah.
member,
Yeah,
right?
you don't resonate. I always say
Yeah,
we just don't resonate with each other. We don't, but I love
that's
that
right.
not being on the same channel because that
Frequency, yeah.
frequency.
Right. One last thing about to say about friendship in general, and I have this in my book too, the friendship life cycle. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so like we go through these sort of periods where the gestation period where you first meet somebody, you fall in love with them as a friend, and you're like, oh, they're amazing, so you go through that period, but then it's like, gestation, and then you kind of have this moment of frustration with them,
Always.
right? You always, no matter what, as you get closer to someone, you're like, oh, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, whatever it is, or like you're this, I'm that. Then all of a sudden you go from gestation to frustration. And then again, young people don't have the tools to move through frustration to cooperation, right? So gestation, frustration, cooperation. Once you move through these moments of frustration, you can get to a place where like, oh my God, we're closer than ever. I love you. You're amazing. I feel even more safe. I feel even more trusting, right? So gestation, frustration, cooperation, creation, right? So then all of a sudden you go from cooperation to now like, oh my gosh, Laura, you and I get along so well. We understand each other's blind spots, our triggers. Let's make a podcast together or whatever. I'm making this up,
Right.
right? So then you get into creation mode. And I really do disagree with this idea that don't make a business with friends.
Yeah, I
I
think
think that if you actually move through a friendship life cycle in a very healthy way, then actually it's the best way to build a business, to be working every day with the people that you love, And so, and then cooperation, creation, and then evolution is the last one, which is sort of like inevitably, we all change, our values, our interests, our abilities change. So the evolution of our friendship life cycle might change. So like, let's say you and I go through the cycle once, we might go back to the gestation phase after the evolution phase and go back around and around and around this friendship life cycle. Or you might evolve onto a different channel and I might be over here going around the same circle and you're going on a different circle. And that's part of life. And to just sort of like wave at the friend and just say, oh my God, I loved our cycle together, and enjoy floating in the universe in this wild pale blue dot that we live on. And I'll be over here if you need me. And so I really do believe in these life cycles of
yeah,
friendship as well. Yeah, and how important it is for our own mental health to not feel disappointed or sad or betrayed, to really recognize that that's just part of life.
yeah, I think that's so important. And that some friendships have run their cycle. That doesn't mean they're evil, bad, your
That's
enemy,
right.
but they're in a different cycle than
That's
you.
right.
They're on a
Yeah,
different channel now.
that's right.
Okay, so we talked about core values and also really important aspects of that cycle of who is in your inner core in general. And then rituals is the R in crawl, right? So
Yes.
rituals, I loved how you talked about how helpful it is. And I didn't even realize I do this at the Grieving Mama meetups. We have like an opening circle kind of grounding. And then at the end, we have a closing kind of process that we do where we squeeze, we go in a circle squeezing hands and saying
Mm.
something. And I was smiling to myself as I was reading this. I was like, oh, look at me. I'm doing all of these things and didn't even know I was doing them.
Yes.
But the ritual piece for Daybreaker, you give them, everyone gets a hug, part of the hugging train when they
That's
come,
right.
rather than a bouncer or
That's
someone
right. That's right.
automatic. And then at the end, that everybody gets a card with a poem or a reading on it, and everybody reads it together in community out loud, and then they take it with them. Like, that made me think I want to do something like that. So
Yes.
a tangible
Exactly.
token.
That's right, a totem. That's
Yeah.
right. You did your homework. I love it, Laura. Yeah, it's rituals are the backbone, the foundation of our sense of belonging, right? When you think about, right, like how we assign the roles of the humans that we surround ourselves with, like doctors wearing a white coat, like church, like priests wearing the priest garb, like the train attendant wearing the train cap, the airline pilot wearing the blue with the wings, right? So it's like we assign the rituals of life. That happy birthday song is a ritual, right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner is a ritual, right? Like all of the sort of these these things that make us feel human are rituals, right? And yet we just think that they're like, oh yeah, it's what we do. You have breakfast or dinner, but these are rituals that were started by some community, by someone who decided that these moments to get together for mealtime was an important ritual to feel a sense of belonging, to connect with one another. And so without ritual, if you're just doing an event without any kind of specific ritual for that community, you will never feel a sense of belonging. You're just going to kind of come in, you watch the event, you're part of a thing, you might eat some hors d'oeuvres and then you'll leave and then it's over. And then you have absolutely zero connection to that community, nor a sense of belonging.
Yeah, I
And
thought
so
that
the
was really interesting.
key, oh yeah, to me, I'm an absolute sucker for rituals. I think that rituals are the most important thing for any event organizer, community builder, business owner, ecclesiast, like you name it. If you're trying to lead a community, you need to sit down and ask yourself, what are the most potent rituals that I can bring into this space that is unique to this space that makes me feel connected to this space, right? And so it's such an important part of the puzzle that so many experienced designers and or space holders don't think about nearly enough.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to breeze. I know the aesthetics is important, but I don't want to run out of time, and I really want to get to the W. So
Yes.
breeze through aesthetics for me,
Yeah,
and
so
then
aesthetics is just, we live in a Instagram filter world. Everyone's a designer, everyone's a creator. We have all the tools at our fingertips, Canva, everything is right there. So aesthetics are critical. If we just, most communities that I see, they have websites that look like they're built in 1992,
yeah,
no offense. And they just like the YMCA's and like all these different kind of community organizations, they just haven't caught up to the importance of aesthetics to actually scale a community. And so it's so important to be mindful of how are people receiving design and aesthetics and information, both not just in the 2D world, right, on a screen or on a billboard, but also in the 3D world, like how you design the experience itself. Right, it can't just be, 4x4 tables, whatever, with some tablecloth on it and some, name tags. It has to be much more thoughtful. So aesthetics, both two-dimensional, three-dimensional, are so important. We spend a lot of time at Daybreaker and at Belong Center thinking about how to make sure the aesthetics are unique to our community.
and if you aren't someone who is, I'm just thinking of people listening who are like, I have no sense of design. That is not my strong suit, but I really want to do this. And obviously there's, you can find templates on Canva and things like that. But is there
Oh
any,
yeah, go to Fiverr. Go to fiverr.com,
okay,
Fiverr.com, and literally look up design, whatever. They'll charge $5 an hour, or someone from Indonesia or someone from wherever, and $5 they'll make you an invitation. Tell them what you like. Find, just go on Pinterest or whatever, and or just tell them what colors you like or what you want, what you need, and you can just get someone. That's a great place to start. And of course, once you
yeah,
accumulate more, money or whatever, then you can hire a proper freelancer. But otherwise, Fiverr is an amazing place. Upwork is an amazing place to just find kind of hourly designers.
yeah, that's good. That's good
Yeah.
advice. Because I know a lot of
Um,
people are just like starting, bootstrapping this. And
yeah, and it's $5 an hour. You
yeah.
spend $30 on an invitation, and you got something really beautiful.
So the
And
Y and
then
Y, the
let's
W.
go to the W in the crawl method. Yeah. So the W to me is an important piece of actually just self-reflection. It's like why it's like the W is both like why, who, where, what, right? And the concept is, why are you the best person to lead this community? Are you better as a number two, as someone who's organized and can, is foundational, can really get all the kind of the underlying production of the gathering together, but you're not necessarily a front person. You might be a little more shy, not a great public speaker initially. So, to really just sit down and ask yourself, am I the right person to lead this community? Do I want to bring someone who's gregarious that can teach me how to be gregarious, not just stay in, if I want to, continue growing into the leader that I am, let me bring in someone who's gregarious who can help me lead the community for the first year. And I learn from them as I get my own legs under me for how to lead a community and not be too proud to do that. I think there's such a pride and ego around being the face that there's all these books about, number two, or like how amazing it is to be the right hand, or someone just know your role and know your lane, and life works out for you. But as soon as you have too big of an ego and you just want to just be the one always in the front, or, which I understand too, like all of us want to be seen, understood, reflected back, sort of loved, cherished. I do see that, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to be the front facing person. So the why is, why are the best person to lead this community? It's a real, yeah, kind of it's an important question to ask yourself. And then also, why is this community viable over time, right? So let's say you start a community and you put all this effort in building the exercise out of making this community start. Well, have you thought about your revenue models? Is it a ticketed model? Is it a sponsorship model? Is it a membership model? Is it a retreat model? What's the model for your community? Is it a product or service model, right? There's so many different sort of questions around the why will this community will be sustainable over time? Because I've met a million community builders who are like, Radha, I want to build community. I want to do a next Daybreaker. I want to do what you do. This is amazing. But they burn out after one event because they're exhausted. They haven't figured out how to do it. They didn't make any money. There's no kind of plan for understanding how this community will make money, to value your time. So people just get burned out so fast in the community building world and the event creation world for that very reason. And it's so important to have that map in front of you, right?
How do you, because like you came to Daybreaker already, having built companies and been a company creator and understood all of that already and understood the resources you would need to bring together. If you're an average Joe or Jane or in between and you want to think about that, right? Or even for me, where I've run businesses before, but with the grief work I'm doing, I'm trying to figure out how to create a sustainable model where I can pay all the facilitators and healers who up to now volunteer their time. I could pay them something. And most importantly, continue feeding into scholarships, because the most important thing to me is to be able to give scholarships to people for going on retreats, in particular the mamas, because when mama's okay, everyone can be okay.
Totally.
So how do you figure out, and we don't have to get into my thing, I'm just using that as an
please,
example.
no, give it to me. Yeah, I want to.
How do you figure out if you don't have business training and that isn't, and you're more of a kind of right brain thinker, just like the Fiverr tip, right? Is there a tip for like finding a resource, even a book or a course or something that could help you figure out like, okay, am I going to go for the sponsorship model? And how do I do that? And like, how do I find sponsors? Am I going to do tickets and what do I charge? And, like, where do you get that support?
Sure. So, obviously my motto is if you build, they will come. And this idea that, step one is, get my book. I mean, really, honestly, and just like take your time to really go through the crawl method and put on your first event.
Yeah.
And then put on your second event, iterating on the first event, and then put on your third event, iterating on the first two events, until you get to a product, right? An event product that you're like, ooh, this feels unique. This feels one of a kind. This feels juicy. This feels like people are getting a lot out of it. You're seeing really great feedback. So I think step one is just start. It doesn't have to start with sponsorship. It's like, for me, I invested literally like $1,000 in the first Daybreaker, of which I got $2,000 back because I sold $25 tickets. And literally we never had a single investor for Daybreaker. We just grew from the small margin profits that we made from each event. So $1,000 that we made now profit, we invested into, two small events, and then another, and that became, so it sort of like snowballed from there, right? And so a step one is I would just start by doing the core, what are your core values, your core community, do a thing, like what are your aesthetics of your community? Why is this community different than any other community that's out there, right? And why would people be like, for example, your grief mamas community, that is an incredible concept and so deeply needed. And so the first thing I would diagnose with you is, what are the aesthetics? What is, how are you, what is your platform? How are you selling tickets? How many people are coming? And based on all of this stuff, we can begin sort of deciding, okay, how do we scale it? Are we going to do circles models where we have, because maybe we want to cap these grief circles to 25 people. So you can't have like a daybreaker event. You can have 1,000 people at an event. So let's say you want to scale it to 1,000 20-person groups,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden you have scales when you can get sponsorship, et cetera, et cetera. But again, if it's also a retreat event with high net worth or just like a high value customer, then you can get, luxury brand, just different kinds of partners to want to get involved. But if you're not someone who's if you're not a right brain person, I think step one is just, if you build it, they will come. Like, just start with your superpower and then put the event out. Just step one is recognizing that no one is an average Joe. We're all unique. If I'm an average Joe, then, like, we're all just regular people trying to make a difference and just trying to solve problems is sort of also, what I say of entrepreneurs like me. But I think step one is recognize that you're not average, you're not normal, you're not boring, or you're not run of the mill. You are deeply needed in starting a community in your community, in your city. And so step one is just recognizing that. And then step two is, okay, give your community idea a name. So you gave it Grief Mom. What did you call it?
There's the Grieving Mama meetups, but then there's the Love Mama retreat, which is our big 5-day retreat in the Redwoods, which I just did our first one last April, where we brought 66 mamas into the woods for an amazing week of healing.
Unbelievable.
So my goal, and we were able to give 40 partial or complete scholarships, and I busted my ass to raise that money. So my goal is to
That's amazing.
easily raise the money, be able to give more scholarships, make that at least an annual event, and then do these kind of smaller weekend retreats. I have one coming up in Chicago in October that will be different models. I'm just kind of playing with different models now. 1-day event, weekend event, 5-day, but they're
Totally.
all funneling into scholarships for
Right.
this big retreat.
This is beautiful. No, it's so important. So I think, yeah, I mean, if you feel really crystallized on the name, then build a brand around it, build a story, I mean, your story is obviously so compelling, and every mama who's lost a child will obviously resonate with your story. And so, to me, that already is the magnetizing, the biggest thing, why is the right person to lead this community? Well, you're the right person because you've lived it.
Yeah.
And, and so you're magnetizing, not pulling in, but you're magnetizing people to come to you for that very reason, because you're building it, you put it out there, you gave it a name, and boom. Like, for example, a quick share. When I became a mom 5 years ago, I didn't know, I was 39. I'd never changed a diaper in my life. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I just was too busy building my businesses and being in my masculine that I had no clue about anything maternal. So I started a WhatsApp group called Modern Mamas. And I just invited 5 moms that I'd known who were like running companies, but also had kids. And I was like, how the hell are you doing this? And then now there's like over 100 moms on this WhatsApp thread. We've never really met in person. We're actually doing our first like meetup, but it's just we're all busy moms. But I'm like, today I was like, I have a sty on my eye. What do I do? It's not even just for kids now. And I got like 10 responses instantly. Put black tea on it. Do this. Try this gauze. Right? And all these moms, they all mother each other. I should add you to it, honestly. And yeah, seriously. And it's an amazing community of moms who just support each other. And again, I'm just a brand new mom who, like, I'm not a mom expert or whatever. I just started a WhatsApp thread that's grown into a thing that these 100 women are just like, Radha, thank you. It's such a lifeline for me, and so it's as simple as just putting a WhatsApp together, and I called it Modern Mamas, the description for like momming in a modern world, And then now, all these moms who were like, I wish I would have done that when I was, pregnant. I wish I would have. It's just about starting. It's just
Yeah,
about
I
doing
think
the thing,
I
you
think
know?
that's so important. And, even with the grieving mama meetups, I keep saying to them when moms reach out to me from out of state, I'm like, start one. I mean, like,
Yes,
send them all your book. I was like, you don't need me. Like my dream is to create a manual for, to raise the money
that's
to
right.
manual in a system and do a tour around the country and have these giant grieving mama meetups and then launch them. Like now you guys go and do it.
Yes.
And so,
So you should create a circles curriculum. You should create a Grieving Mama circle
yeah, that's
curriculum
what I want to do.
on how to do that. And I can once we're just finalizing our Belong Circles curriculum. We could even do a partnership and in LA where we actually invite your Grieving Mamas to Belong Center and
Yeah,
do sort of like
maybe.
a meetup together. And you can even, because we're launching in 50 states, we can even do a grief circle in all the states, right? And partner with you guys. And so there's so many ways in which collaborate. Again, like you started a thing, you're doing a thing, and I'm starting a thing, and now I'm like, great, let's collaborate. And then it becomes a bigger thing because we just started, right? We just started somewhere. And so I
Yeah,
think that's really the key,
yeah.
right?
So just start, guys.
Just
And
start and then don't give up after the first three events. Give
I can't wait.
yourself, yeah, give yourself, I would say, if you're really going to commit to it and take the time to do the first event, just commit to a cadence, even if it's like every quarter, four
Yeah.
times in a year. Just like commit to this quarterly event for the year and see how you feel at the end of it, right? Don't bite off more than you can chew. So don't try to do a weekly or even a monthly. Initially, we bit off way more than we could. We were doing every 2 weeks Daybreaker events in New York,
Woo, that's a lot.
and we had to sell like 500 tickets just to break even. It was just like it was a lot. And so we are now doing touring model instead of a monthly model. So we're doing 50 events, which is a lot, our biggest one for
Yeah.
this tour, but usually we do about a 20 city tour.
And so if people want to learn more, I mean, obviously I've already, the book is the place to start, guys. If you want to just find your
Or come
people
to Daybreaker, yeah.
or come today, but if you want to find your people and or want to start something, a community on purpose or just a community collective, the book is called Belong, Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. But if they want to learn more about the tour you're doing, Daybreaker, the Belong Center that's going to be around the country, where do they go for that?
Yeah, so by the way, this is our Daybreaker tour this fall. We rarely get to offer it, but because we have a big nonprofit organization supporting it, our Purple Tour in all 50 states are free.
Oh, wow.
So it's a
That's
free RSVP. Yeah, it's amazing. So we get to really anybody who wants to come. We're again all over the country, coast to coast. So you'll be able to find one in your city. But you can go to daybreaker.com to RSVP for a dance party with us, a party to the polls, or you can go to my website, radhaagrawal.com, to learn more about my book, or you go to Amazon to buy my book or any
and
bookseller.
we'll have the links in the bio to
And then
everything.
belongcenter.org is our nonprofit.
Amazing. I can't wait to check it out when it opens in LA.
Thank you. Yeah, we're opening literally in the next few weeks.
I'm so excited. And I'm so, so thrilled to have been able to talk to you. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world and who you are and that you were born. I'm just really glad that you're here.
Thank you. You're so
Thank
sweet. And likewise, and just like to hear your journey and to hear how joyful and how in service you are from your own experience. It's inspiring. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm committed to it. I'm devoted to it because I would have never thought I could survive something like this, much less transform into a more powerful, self-actualized, pure
Mm.
version of myself. Like this shit burnt everything that didn't belong. So
I can
I'm
only
really,
imagine. You have
I'm
three
really
you have three kids?
3 kids. He was the middle one, Sammy. It's been a powerful journey that I'm devoted to taking other people on because that shit will take you down
Oh
otherwise.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're
Um,
amazing. You're incredible. We'll here for you. Look
we're
forward to
all
collaborating.
incredible. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
That I didn't even expect that part. I was just excited to talk to you. That's a big bonus.